As summer drew to a close, I snagged a gig at a Boardwalk arcade. My shift spanned the dead season, September through April. I foolishly thought it'd be a breeze. The arcade was the only spot running all year. Everything else, the thrill rides, the soft-serve parlor, the mirrored funhouse, would be padlocked and silent. September's chill crept in, and one by one, the attractions began their slumber. I watched them prepare the tiger-themed kiddie coaster for winter. I saw the zippered tarp pulled over the large, grim visage of Trevor the Train. By late September, the place was a spectral wasteland. The boardwalk was practically deserted, save for the rare cyclist or jogger. The relentless ocean pounded the empty sands. A few kids drifted into the arcade now and then, but business was non-existent. Why don't they just close for the winter? I asked my coworker. Abby. This can't be making any money for the owners. She just shrugged. I don't know, but I'm not complaining. It was an unbelievable setup. We got a full paycheck for barely lifting a finger, plus subsidized living space. We lived in 2 cramped, cheap loft apartments directly above the arcade. We'd stay until May 1st, when the boardwalk jolted back to life. I'm shocked they hired me, I confessed, knowing my resume was far from impressive. Same here, Abby replied. I didn't even have references. We had both recently finished high school with no real plan. I was hoping to save enough cash for community college courses the next year, since my family wasn't interested in funding my schooling. Closing up alone. One evening in late September, Abby asked me to lock up alone. She'd felt ill and went up to her apartment around 7 o'clock. It would be my first solo close. Even though I'm a tall guy, I felt a tremor of unease as the time approached. We closed at 9 o'clock, but the last stragglers had left 2 hours earlier. It was just me and the flickering neon luminescence of the arcade machines. My initial task was a sweep, check for anyone still lurking. I secured the main door, flipped the sign, and began my creeping nightly rounds. I moved down the rows of retro classics. Pac-Man, Mortal Kombat, Mousetrap. Their screens blazed, a chaotic dance of neon, shaking pixels. I passed the skee-ball and basketball games, heading toward the back where the claw machines, overflowing with prizes, stood. As I walked past the claw games, I caught a sound. A small, sharp hiccup. I froze, turning slowly. Is someone in here? I called out. A few silent seconds passed. Then I heard it, a frantic thumping, like a child sprinting. Hey! I shouted. It's all right. I spun, scanning everywhere, but saw nothing move. My heart hammered. What if I couldn't find them? I took a deep, shaky breath. If I fail, I call the cops, and they'll handle it. But my night would be ruined. It would take ages for them to arrive, find the kid, contact the parents, and take my report. Just come out. I gritted, my frustration boiling over. I need to close up. You don't want to get locked in, do you? The overhead lights went dark. You little jerk. I fumed internally. This kid was playing a sick game. Pale light filtered in from the boardwalk, which felt miles away from my spot in the back. The console lights glowed, throwing grotesque shadows that writhed. I inhaled deeply. A faint rustle came from behind me. I whipped around, just in time to see the stuffed toys in the claw machine shaft shift. I looked down, the prize door was swinging. Oh no, did they climb inside? They could suffocate in there. How could I possibly get them out? I knelt, lifted the flap, and spoke softly. Hey, come on. You have to get out of there. Silence. I have candy. I trilled. Nothing. The prizes moved again. A tiny gap appeared between a brown bear and a black bear. In the darkness, I just caught the glimmer of an eye. The child was staring straight at me. You can pick any bear you want and take it home. I reached my hand up through the door. Here, take my hand. I'll help you. But as I knelt, my mind finally clicked. This opening was only wide enough for a small toddler. Would a 2-year-old be coordinated enough to climb in? And a 2-year-old certainly wouldn't be. Taunting me, switching off lights, and hiding. The prizes shifted again. Something shot out and seized my wrist. My arm was violently yanked up into the machine. My shoulder slammed the prize door frame with a sickening crack. I struggled, but the grip was impossibly powerful, way too strong for a child. Yet, the hand was small, pale, and locked on my arm like a steel vice. I grabbed the machine with my free hand and pushed wildly. With a surge of desperation, I tore my hand free. I scrambled to my feet, backing away, gasping for breath. I spun and bolted toward the arcade entrance. The neon lights blurred in the gloom. Step up and score, the booming basketball game voice taunted. I pushed myself harder, but my foot snagged something. I tripped, pitching headlong into the darkness. The floor smacked me hard. I scrambled up, ignoring the throbbing pain, just in time to see a small silhouette vanish behind a pinball machine. All I glimpsed was a pale, plump hand. I lunged for the door, fumbled the lock, and burst onto the boardwalk, sucking in great, icy breaths of the chilly, salty air. The harsh white glare of the safety lamps poured down on me. Across the sand, the dark ocean churned and rolled. I glanced up at the faint stars. You saw them, didn't you? My whole body locked up. I heard the soft, rhythmic thud of footsteps behind me. I felt a crushing presence, but an instinctual dread rooted me, screaming at me not to look back. The voice had a strange, rolling tempo, and the footsteps were a lurching, off-kilter limp. My brain was screaming. Do not turn around. Yeah, I choked out, my voice trembling. Don't let them touch you, the voice rasped. The invisible weight lifted, and I heard the limping footfalls retreat to my right and fade. I closed my eyes, gulping air. When I finally turned, the boardwalk was empty. A tangle of dry seaweed lay where the thing had stood. I hesitated, staring into the arcade's black maw, then called the police. The incident of '06. The officers performed a search. I watched their flashlight beams cut through the dark aisles. Minutes later, the lights came on. A broad, mustachioed officer, a total stereotypical 80s tough guy, came out to talk to me. Lots of weirdos around here off-season, he said dismissively. Kids pull pranks, teens drink. We try to patrol, but it happens. But did you see anyone inside? I pressed. Nope. Must have bolted before we got here. I had been staring at the door. There was no way anyone had left. And you checked the claw machines? I asked. As best we could, he replied. I described the man who'd spoken to me, omitting the terror. He waved his hand. Oh, I've heard of some old guy who hangs around saying strange things. I wouldn't worry about it. He treated the whole thing as mundane. The more I questioned, the more irritated he became, until he cut me off, claiming he had another call. I ran into the arcade, up the stairs, and locked myself into my apartment. I swore I'd never close alone again. For the next week or two, calm prevailed. Then I heard noises from the amusement ride zone. All the rides, the coaster, the tilt-a-whirl, were swathed in tarps and locked behind metal fencing. Walking past, I heard a faint tapping from within. I figured it was an animal, but then the tarp over Trevor the train seemed to shift, as if something was struggling beneath it. Oh, seriously, another kid? I squinted. Something was definitely moving. Not my problem, I decided, backing away. I was only hired to watch the arcade. But as I watched, the movement ceased. Then, a dark liquid began to seep out from under the tarp. I watched in utter dread as what looked like blood trickled out. It dripped right below where the train's face would be. I pictured the hideous gray face of the train, chomping down on some poor creature. I called the police again. This time, they sounded genuinely annoyed. One officer was the same man, Mr. Macho. The other, a skinny, young partner, peered under the tarp and scowled in disgust. Oh, it's a seagull. Poor thing got tangled. Mr. Macho crossed his arms, his scowl deepening as he faced me. You cannot keep calling us out here. I genuinely thought someone was in danger both times. You're wasting our time. He turned sharply and headed for the patrol car. But his partner approached me. This job is dangerous, he murmured. What? Working here off-season? It takes a toll on the mind, he continued, eyes lowered. People get paranoid, isolated, cabin fever. I'm not alone. I have Abby, I countered, pointing to the arcade. You two get along. Yeah. Good. Keep it that way. We wouldn't want another incident like 06-inch. And with that, he walked to the car. Wait, 06. I called after him. Look it up. You'll see, he called back, disappearing down the boardwalk. The patrol car zoomed past on the main road, and I was left in silence. The cold wind lashed in from the beach. The ocean was a turbulent, gray mass of whitecaps. I tore my gaze away and looked at the blood pool under Trevor the train. I shuddered. Back inside, I immediately looked up the 06 incident. I found a few articles on strange, archaic websites. I questioned their veracity, but they all told the same terrifying story. Two young men, Chase and Dermot, had worked off-season at the old archery range. Chase stopped contacting his girlfriend in early October. 4 days later, she went to the police. They found Chase's half-decayed body on the beach, an arrow piercing his chest. Dermot was found nearby, sitting on a bench. Emaciated, dehydrated, rocking and muttering, "That wasn't him. That wasn't him." No one ever figured out the full truth. Dermot got a lighter sentence due to insanity. But one chilling, unexplained detail was mentioned in a single article. Dermot's eyes had been gouged out. Any sensible person would have resigned right then. A child with superhuman strength had tried to drag me into a claw machine. I was supposed to believe a seagull just happened to fly into a tarp and bleed to death dramatically. That made no sense. And now, a gruesome murder had happened right here 2 decades ago. I stayed for 2 reasons. This was the easiest money I'd ever made, and Abby refused to leave. I tried to persuade her, but she hadn't witnessed the horror. She found the murder terrifying but too old to worry about. I couldn't abandon her here. I'll admit, I was developing feelings for her, too. She was sweet and kind. I knew she was dealing with an eating disorder, but I wanted to be a supportive friend. So, I remained. A few days passed peacefully. The funhouse. Then, one rainy Wednesday morning, Abby and I found a note taped to the arcade door. It read, Someone reported hearing noises from the funhouse. There may be an animal trapped in there. Can you go check it out? From David. David was our boss, though we hadn't seen him since training. Oh, absolutely not, Abby declared. It's not our job, I agreed. It turned out, it was. We came back from lunch to find a new note. It stated that our duties included checking on the other boardwalk attractions. David had meticulously cut a snippet from our contract and stuck it on the note. He'd also added, in a sickeningly sweet tone, "It is your job and employees who don't do their jobs will be fired." We froze. Is he listening to us? I whispered. Abby shook her head. Did he have hidden cameras and microphones everywhere? Was he watching us right now? Before I could panic further, Abby started walking toward the funhouse. I need this job, she muttered as we walked the rain-slicked boardwalk. I know, I replied, suddenly exhausted by the whole charade. I was ready to quit, contract or no contract. The funhouse signs. Wavy red font glowed against the gray gloom. A spray-painted clown with dead eyes stared down at us. Abby unlocked the door and shoved the rolling metal barrier aside. The funhouse was a black pit. The air was thick with dust and rot. What if the animal is rabid? Abby whispered. If it bites, you catch it, then get it tested, I joked. She raised an eyebrow. You think I'll manage to catch a rabid animal in a funhouse? Look, it's probably just a squirrel. Gray light streamed in behind us. I fumbled behind the ticket counter for a light switch. With a metallic groan, black lights flickered on. Deep inside, some machinery whirred to life. We were faced with a mirror maze. Oh, hell no, Abby groaned. I despise these things. Follow my lead then, I said, trying to project courage despite my internal terror. They seriously expected us to hunt an animal in here. Why not call animal control? How about this? 10 minutes, then we leave and say we couldn't find it, I proposed. Okay, she breathed. I entered the maze first, hands stretched out. I edged left. I saw Abby in the mirror behind me, nervously wringing her hands. Thunk. My hand hit glass. I sidestepped, only to face another mirror. Abby was still behind me. Her face was ghostly pale, bathed in the sickly blue of the black light. She opened her mouth, shook her head, and followed silently. Left, right, straight. I focused only on moving forward, navigating the panes of glass. I tried to build a mental map, but the maze quickly became a confusing mess. I could see the exit, only a few feet ahead. We were almost free. Another mirror blocked the way. I dodged around it, then stopped. I stared into the mirror. Abby was there, but she wasn't wringing her hands. She was smiling. I spun around. The maze behind me was empty. Abby. I called, my voice echoing. Abby. Relief washed over me, I spotted her a short distance back. She looked frantic, her face pressed against the glass, skin glowing blue. I carefully retraced my steps. I was right next to her. It's going to be all right, I pressed my palms against the glass. We're fine. I looked left, then right, all mirrors. I couldn't find the path to her, but I was so close. Abby, you hear me, right? We'll be fine. Then I heard it, a wet dripping sound. I looked down. Beneath Abby, a puddle of something dark was forming. I looked up at her and screamed. A dark gash ran across her throat, and blood was dripping onto her black shirt. In the dim light, I hadn't even noticed. She was dead. No. I mumbled, stumbling back. My back hit a pane of glass. Abby, please, you can't. Her head snapped up. Her eyes flew open, and her lips curled into a sickening, blood-stained smile. She tilted her head, staring at me. What the? I'm over here. I spun around to see Abby standing at the maze exit, waving frantically. That's not me. I screamed. A sheet of glass thundered down from the ceiling. It locked into a groove on the floor, trapping me. I slammed my fists against it. It rattled but held firm. I felt my pockets, my phone. I backed up a few steps, then hurled it. It struck the glass with a loud thunk, and a crack appeared. I saw Abby rushing toward me, navigating the maze. I pounded the crack with my fist. It widened, spiderwebbing across the pane, and then the entire sheet exploded into shards. Seconds later, she grabbed my hand and yanked. The rest of the maze was a blur. Dead Abby, leaving bloody handprints as she clawed at the glass. Mirror Abby, her grin stretching wider and wider, slowly advancing. More panes of glass slammed down. We burst out of the maze and plunged deeper into the funhouse's dim recesses. Black lights shone from above, making the streamers glow a sickly puke green and radioactive orange. Ahead, I heard the taped laughter track on endless loop. Abby's fingers dug into my arm. The dark hall curved, and we were face to face with an animatronic clown. The laughter track continued as its head mechanically turned. It was stirring a cauldron of black liquid, making a horrible, squelching noise. Come on. I tugged. The clown's eyes followed us as we hurried to the next room. This room was filled with distorting funhouse mirrors. I barely glanced at them as I rushed past. It wasn't until I reached the hallway with the shaking floor tiles that I realized Abby was no longer holding my hand. For a terrifying moment, I considered running. Maybe she'd slipped past, was safe on the boardwalk. But I knew that was a lie. I turned and sprinted back. Abby was kneeling on the floor of an octagonal room. Her face was blank, entranced by one of the mirrors. Abby, I whispered. She whimpered. I leaned down and took her hand. Hey, let's go. I can't, she whispered. Then I saw the reflection. It was her, but subtly wrong. She looked as though she had gained 5 or 10 pounds, a difference barely noticeable to me, but everything to her. That's me, she said. That's what I look like. She began to frantically pat her own face. That's me. That's me. Abby, we really need to. I can't. I can't. It's me. She clawed at her cheeks. It's me. That's what I look like. I grabbed her hand and tried to pull her up, but then my eyes snagged on my own reflection. My face and body were normal. Pale skin, dark hair, thin frame. But then I saw the people behind me. A woman with auburn curls, a man with close-cropped black hair. Both had their backs to me. My parents. My heart dropped. I couldn't tear my gaze away. Even after everything, seeing them was a primal, instinctual draw. You never cared about me, I growled at the mirror, the words escaping without thought. The figure resembling my mother slowly turned. She was smiling, her teeth glowing in the black light. Why would we, she said, in my mother's voice, but raspingly deep. You were never going to amount to anything anyway. You're going to end up like your brother, the figure of my father added with a casual shrug. A soft thump made me spin away. The reflection of Abby was crawling out of the mirror, hands splayed on the floor. Her hand slowly reached for the real Abby's neck. No. I screamed. I grabbed Abby's arm and violently pulled her away. "Come on!" I shouted, my voice raw and wet with tears. We sprinted through the dark corridors, past a second animatronic clown, butchering something with a cleaver. We turned into a tunnel where the floor tiles shifted, nearly throwing me off balance. Then we burst out the exit, gasping in the cold air. Abby collapsed on a bench, sobbing uncontrollably. I held her, feeling numb. "Come on," I said when her tears subsided. "Let's get out of here." She nodded. I helped her up, and we hurried down the boardwalk, past the shuttered games and the frozen yogurt stand. The stairs leading to the beach came into view. Then, music filled the air. The game booth. One of the games ahead was open. A zippered tarp had been pulled back. I could see the piles of colorful stuffed prizes. A multicolored wheel was spinning slowly, ticking against the spokes. I slowed, shielding Abby. We stared. "That wasn't open this morning," Abby whispered. "Just walk past." "Don't look at it," I replied. "Pretend you don't even see it." We started walking. As we drew closer, I caught a glimpse in my peripheral vision. Someone was in the booth. A woman, dressed in a kind of tuxedo. She stood perfectly rigid, hands clasped, as the wheel spun. As we passed, I saw streaks of mascara running down her face. I heard her whisper above the music. "They're all dead." My fingers tightened on Abby's arm as we tried to move faster. Something collided hard with my chest. Suddenly, I was standing directly in front of the booth. Abby was next to me. I tried to run, but my feet were nailed to the ground. It felt like an invisible force was holding us. "What the?" Abby's voice failed. The woman reached out a hand to the wheel. Her face was ghostly white, like bad clown makeup. Her grin stretched almost to her ears. Her eyes were wide and staring, the mascara bleeding down her cheeks. The prizes behind her were grotesque mockeries of stuffed toys, characters with blood smeared on their faces, X's for eyes, and razor-sharp grins. She rested her hand on the wheel. It was divided into 4 colors, red, yellow, green, and blue. Each section bore sharp black text. Red read: "A painful death." Yellow: "No escape." Green: "They're all dead." Blue: "Lost at sea." I fought to move, but I was completely paralyzed. The woman grabbed the wheel and spun it violently. The ticking sound began. Abby and I watched in terror as the wheel slowed. The ticker passed red, then yellow, then green, then blue. It seemed to linger on red. My vision swam. The ticker finally landed on yellow, "No escape." The woman bowed. As she straightened, the invisible pressure vanished. I could move. I stumbled back. The woman grinned down at us. "Run," Abby whispered. We sprinted down the boardwalk. The rain felt ice cold, like needles. My legs burned. I gasped for air, focusing on the boardwalk's end. I risked a final glance back. The woman was watching, but not following. We leaped for the stairs. Suddenly, the world spun violently. I grabbed the railing as intense vertigo hit. Wood, sand, and ocean blurred into a high-speed chaos. Then, I was standing back at the start of the boardwalk, next to Vivian's souvenir shop. I saw the tarp-covered rides, the flashing arcade light, and the funhouse fading into the rain. Did we just teleport? Abby stuttered. It was impossible, insane, but the last thing I remembered was running down the far stairs. Now we were here. I ran to the end of this side, past the souvenir shop. I bounded down the steps. The world tilted again. Everything spun, like I'd just been on the tilt-a-whirl. When the dust settled, I was back at the other end, near the ice cream shop. I saw Abby, a tiny speck in the distance. At least the woman from the game booth wasn't chasing us. Huffing, I ran back. Halfway, I veered for the beach access ramp. I hopped the closed gate and ran onto the sand, my feet sinking with every step. I ran until the freezing water lapped at my shoes. No boats, no sign of life, just cold, gray water fading into the void. I ran left, but as soon as I reached the latitude of the souvenir shop, the vertigo struck. I was back at the far end. Running to the opposite end of the beach did the same thing. I collapsed onto the sand. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Though I had reached the police days ago, every number I called now went to the same message. We're sorry. This number has been disconnected. I buried my head in my hands. 10 minutes later, Abby joined me. I don't know what's happening, she sobbed. I know, I mumbled. We sat in the cold, wet sand, staring at the ocean, lost. The sun began to set. Long, creeping shadows stretched from the amusement rides. Soon, it would be night. The only exit. We returned to the arcade. I found a hammer in the storage closet. I ran to the back, between the pinball machines, and started slamming it against the wall. Thud. What are you doing? Abby yelled. If I break the wall, I panted, maybe we can get out. But I knew it was futile. Whatever held us prisoners surrounded the entire area. Besides, 10 furious blows hadn't even scratched the surface. I dropped the hammer in frustration. But then, a new idea sparked. Come on, I said. We ran back out onto the boardwalk, now bathed in the blue light of dusk. I pointed at the arcade roof. Give me a boost. Maybe I can jump down on the other side. That's insane, she protested, but she knelt. I climbed onto her knee and grabbed the roof. I tried to pull up. The cheap aluminum sliced into my palms. I groaned and fell back. I can't do it. I ran to the amusement rides. A stone wall separated them from the rest of the town. Frantically, I tried to climb, but my sneakers slipped. There were no handholds. I silently followed Abby back to the arcade. I checked my phone. No service, no internet. I felt empty and exhausted. Tired of the panic, I walked to the Pac-Man machine and began to play. Then. Mortal Kombat. The sky deepened to black. The twinkling stars shone down. The boardwalk was alien in the darkness. It was lit by harsh white lamps, floating like a strip of wood suspended in the black void. Then I saw it. A light out on the ocean. Abby, look. We raced to the beach. Hey! Abby screamed, waving her phone's flashlight wildly. We're over here. Help! I shouted. SOS. The light wasn't far. It twinkled, blindingly bright. It was getting closer. The light grew into a miniature sun floating on the water. It stopped about 20 yards out, bobbing on the waves. Do they want us to swim to it? Abby asked. I don't know. A terrible feeling settled in my gut. No one called out. The light didn't signal. It was so bright I couldn't see the boat or anyone on it. Then, I heard a sound. Soft music from the boat. A beautiful, lilting woman's melody. The light seemed to shimmer with rainbow edges. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Colors I couldn't name. Pulsed in the corona of the light. Without realizing it, I was wading into the water. Don't get on the boat. It was the wet, wavering voice I'd heard before. The same oppressive presence weighed on me, screaming. Don't turn around. Don't turn around. I shouted at Abby. It was too late. She was staring behind us, eyes wide, mouth hanging open. She was frozen, only her head trembling slightly. Abby. She collapsed to her knees, then began furiously raking her fingers through the sand. She pulled up a piece of broken shell. She brought it to her face, and with a horrible, tearing scream, began stabbing herself in the eye. No. I screamed. I grabbed her arm. It took all my strength to restrain her. She screeched, desperately trying to stab herself again. I couldn't look, but a thin line of blood trickled down her cheek. Water, the voice burbled behind me. Submerge her in the water. Against all reason, I hoisted her and dragged her deeper into the freezing water. She was still fighting, but weakly. Gritting my teeth, I forced her shoulders and then her face into the sea. I felt like I was drowning her. When I pulled her up, seconds later, she was spluttering and weeping. It hurts, she sobbed, clutching me. It hurts so bad. I stroked her hair. It's okay now. Everything's okay. I'm so cold, she whimpered, shaking against me. Then I noticed it. The light on the boat was gone. We were in total darkness. Did it leave? I spun around. I smelled the stench of rotting things mixed with salt. Then I saw it. A void of blackness silhouetted against the stars. The boat was closer, much larger than I'd thought. It towered 20 feet above the waves, blotting out the starlight. I helped Abby out of the water. Keep your eyes on the ground, I whispered. Don't look at it. The old man, or whatever it was beside us. It smelled of salt, sun-baked sand, and putrid fish. Its breathing was a wet, crackling sound. It's too late. They're coming. Then I heard it. A splash. Then a chorus of splashing as many more followed. You can leave this place, the thing beside us rasped. The gap between the funhouse and the game booth. It's the only exit. We hobbled onto the boardwalk. The neon lights were blinding. We sprinted toward the funhouse. Seconds later, I heard the patter of many footsteps behind us. We passed the clown and the mouth of the mirror maze. I guided Abby to the crevice. It was a narrow gap, maybe 1.5 feet wide. Neither of us looked like we'd fit. Beyond it was absolute blackness. I helped Abby squeeze in. She contorted her body. The walls pressed against her. I can't fit, she cried, her voice shaking. The footsteps thundered closer. You have to try. I whispered. Come on. No, I'm too big, she sobbed. I pushed her shoulder. With that last inch, there was a popping noise, and she vanished. I crouched and pulled myself in. The last thing I saw was a swarm of shadows rippling under the white lights, glowing with colors I'd never seen. I squeezed further, and the vertigo hit me like a truck. When the world settled, I was standing in the parking lot of the boardwalk, Offshore Avenue. Abby was beside me, doubled over, gasping. The moon was a low, deep gold in the purple sky. Silence. I looked back, the buildings blocked the view, but the harsh white lamp posts hovered in the darkness. We called the police. We told everyone. No one believed us. The police even sent photos from their investigation to prove everything was normal. The photos showed the funhouse and games covered and closed. There was no evidence of the horrors we'd seen. A year has passed. I've tried to share our story everywhere, but I've failed. The boardwalk is preparing for fall again. The rides are tarped, the beaches are closed, the crowds are thinning. The arcade is open, and I've seen 2 new employees. Abby and I tried to warn them. The guy laughed, the woman looked terrified. They both dismissed me as a weirdo. Then the police told us to leave, saying we were scaring people. I wish I could have done more. I have a crushing feeling that those new employees will be gone by the end of this fall.